You can go over there. Oh, just move the camera again now.
Oh, I don't see the music.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Croeso. Which way are you going on?
Over here.
Over here.
Hello.
All right. We've seen a bit of a lag on there. Play away. Arnie will play us in when he gets a chance to log in. Sorry there wasn't much warning tonight. A Welsh song. What's it called again? Something to do with David.
David of the White Rock.
David the Garagwen. Oh, that's the one. David the Garagwen. Quick then. Okay, everybody. Let's hope this is... Hey, there we go. Thank you very much. Well done, Arnie. Right, we got some great stuff tonight. But not much visuals or anything to go with it. But we're going to go through it as we go, okay? Just like to welcome everybody. Just give them a chance to log on. Because we didn't do any... Usually have schedule the event in advance so people have a chance to see it and click and wait. And we got quite a lot of people waiting before we even start. So I think everything's working fine now. Just good check there, Arnie. Good. Check the volume's working on. That's the main thing if you're just playing. Yep, everything's good to go. Excellent. Oh, yeah, here we go. The feedback's coming on. Oh, people are logging on. Oh, loads of people logging on now. Fantastic. Right, hang on. Let's get some information so I can see. Oh, hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, Paul. Yes. No thumbnail on the BHH site as usually done. Yes, well done, Paul. Sorry about that. Sappening butt. How much you benching? What? What's the month? I don't know what I've lost me there, David. Tell me again. There. Evening all. Hello, we got Meg, Gary Taylor. Oh, good to see you, Gary. Yeah, going to see you tomorrow, hopefully. Drop off those books. That's brilliant. Alan Reese. Hello. Hugh Evans, Andrew Whelan. Hey, Rego's there. Brilliant. Thought you might be in work. Thank you, William. Yeah, Arnie's playing well there. Craig, Thomas, Patrick, Rob Shaw, Taliesin. Arnie, sorry, screwed that one up.
Yeah, I messed up one line of it.
Oh, the tune. Oh, well, you only started playing it an hour ago. And I thought, I'm looking full of beans and I'm looking wide awake. And the reason is, I thought I'd have a little snooze before the show. And I'll come back down, get all the graphics ready, and I'll be beaming to go. Because I was worn out because I finally got the book out the door. The Chronology. It is actually with the printers, okay? As opposed to almost ready. Yay! And the print file's going over to America as well. Yay! So that's great. And then I just, thank goodness I got a phone call because I think I'd still be asleep. So I am now bouncing off the walls. But you're going to have to live with me a little bit while I line up the graphics. Some great stuff to talk about. The big one, did the thumbnail go up at all? Sound, what's wrong with the sound?
No, you said
Oh, it's got sound. Oh, God, I was going to say, don't tell me the sound's not working again. That'll just be a nightmare. Now, can't hear you. Yeah, it's only you, Rob, I think. Check it on. You can hear it, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, it's coming through the headphones. Oh, check your setup, Rob. Don't scare me like that. Like he's winding me up, I think. Hello, Chris. Right, now, what I'm going to do, as I don't have many of the graphics set up, is a couple of main headings. One, I'm going to show you, there was, one of the reasons a slight delay with the Chronology was looking, once again, through the back of Moses in the Hieroglyphs. It's a kind of a rambly kind of chapter which I think not many people have really read. I've gone through it and it's interesting but confusing, and that has loads of Egyptian words, some of which are still used to this day, which are clearly Welsh. So I'm just going to whiz through that later. Also open for any questions. We've had a lot of interesting stuff come up this week, and I'm going to put a couple of them on there just to give us some pictures to look at while we get started. But I'm not starting with these, alright? Not to talk too much about these because they aren't subjects I know much about. Right, let's do this from current slide. Hopefully the screen share works. This one was very funny from David. If anyone's seen this, just made me laugh. Easter Island, one end, Stonehenge, the toes, the other end. But the main subject I want to get on to, I've talked about it for a long time. I'm going to make this amazing, 2-hour spectacular video, and it was going to have graphics and all sorts of things, and it's never going to happen because I just don't have the time and it's just never going to happen. So rather than that, I'm going to give an insight, a beginning into what I rather modestly call the grand history of everything, okay? And I have got one prop, which is a globe, all right? We're going to go with the global model of the Earth for this one, all right? I know as...
oh, you're in the bottom corner for some reason.
I'm on the bottom corner, yeah, because
Tiny.
I'm tiny, yeah. I can go a bit bigger, shall I? Okay. Anyway, and just to get the ball rolling before we get onto that. Oh yeah, sorry. And the main topic, because the history of everything from the start of the forming of the planets isn't enough for I'll be pretty quick and pretty short. We'll whiz through that. What I want to look at then is I was preparing for this one. If you notice, during the week I put quite a few videos up. And I'm going to try and get one up every day this week about Wilson and Blackett. Right, let's talk to me a second. Directly about Wilson Blackett's books and raising the main subjects. Because what I've realised is let's get this right. Let's get this in perspective in my head. Right. While we spend a lot of time, people like me have spent years studying their work. I edit their books and all sorts of things. So... it's really well versed, and I'm quite keen then to show something new. I find something new, and then I can share it with everybody. But a lot of people come to this channel because they want to find out about Wilson and Blackett's work. They haven't spent years studying it and reading it. They might not even have the books. They might be thinking about the books, or have just ordered them, or just started reading them, or know them really, really well. Like a lot of people in the group know them better than me, and just want to talk about them and discuss them. So we're going to focus more in on the real core of Britain's hidden history, and you've seen this week did a couple of videos talking about this idea that Wilson and Blackett have. Sorry, I'm filling in the screen here. That we are really looking at one of the big holes we need to look at is this idea of a Roman occupation and whether or not there actually was a Roman invasion of Britain. If you look at the videos this week, judging by the numbers, most people have seen them already, I think. Because the one on this has done, I know, over 500 people watched it within a day and a half, something like that. So they're proving a lot of interest and quite controversial. We've had some quite good discussions about it. So I want to talk a bit about that. So where should we start? I tell you, in fact, we'll start with the Romans, because what I want to talk about is a more sort of philosophical thing on a Sunday evening. So in the week, there's going to be more and more of these 15-minute historical videos with... I'll try and put some more graphics with them. And yeah, hang on, just watching the chat. No, everyone's okay. Yeah, Arnie's finishing his sushi. Thanks, Arn. Right, so what I'm trying to do is lots of 15-minute videos covering individual topics, so people can really talk about those topics and dig into the books and learn more about what we're doing. And what I want to do that on a Sunday evening gives us a chance to do more general stuff, make it more interactive, and cover more interesting subjects which kind of relate to it. So that's the plan. But, this is everyone's channel, so please fire away with your suggestions, what things you like, which way you see the channel going. But I see it more and more going in that direction. So we have a lot of fun this Sunday evening, and I don't want to change that. And I think sometimes, an hour on one subject, things like that can be a bit too much. So let's do more of the factual stuff in the week, in the little 15-minute bullets. And then Sunday we can have our fun hangout and go through some more general subjects. So for all those coming for the first time, welcome aboard. I can see loads of people are logged on now. All right, we get going after I've been waffling there. You're very welcome. The whole idea of what we're doing here is that there is an official narrative of British history which has been taught in schools for not as long as you think. I mean, in the Welsh schools, the cunning plan, yes, cunning plan, Andrew, thank you, is that in the Welsh schools, the agenda was only really, the syllabus was only really changed as recently as the 1920s. So it's the last 100 years, this accepted narrative that we all know and just call it history, because it's the only story that we know kind of thing. So that's only been around about 100 years. Before then, there was a very different version of British history, which over the centuries has been slowly hidden, deleted, destroyed, and we've ended up very hard to get hold of it. So what happened was, by the time you got to the 1980s and 1990s, this history had almost disappeared completely. It was about to vanish, There would be some people out there who'd know about it, but very few. And it would be like some weird Last of the Jedi situation. But then luckily, more Star Wars analogies, Wilson and Blackett came along, absolute geniuses, and what they managed to do then was rescue this history and went right back to the original records before it was too late. And here we are exploring their work, what they've produced, and then as you look into it, you find there's lots of other writers as well. So one of them, for example, which I want to talk about, not tonight, because I don't know much about it, but if people do know, excuse me, is this sort of map. Can you get a drink as well, please? A squash, sure. Yeah.
Orange juice or squash?
Squash, please. And then, sorry about that, then there's this rather interesting map, which, I don't know if you've seen before. I'd had an idea about it before, but I didn't know much about it. This is from the work of Comyns Beaumont. You want to know something about? He was originally a journalist. I think he worked on the Daily Mail, I think it was. And he had these ideas about British history, and he sort of jacked all that in and worked on this project for, well, dedicated his life to it for decades. And while you're looking at this rather confusing map, and that's why I put myself down the bottom corner, you'll see this was his vision of the Bible and of ancient history. It all started from Britain. So if you look, he's got Jerusalem is around Edinburgh, and then you've got some weird things. If you don't know his work, I don't know it very well. A lot of it seems very weird. Excuse me. Chaldea and Macedonia ends up in the top of Scotland. We've got Greece, as you can see, over in the sort of Western Isles. And then we've got, well, you can follow your own way around. Ireland consists of Carthagena, Libya, and Phoenicia. Wales is Ethiopia, and the River Jordan is presumably the Severn. And then down in Cornwall, we've got Tarshish. And the one is we're looking at recently, which ties in with Marchel's work, is you got Troy being over in Cambridgeshire, which is now called Syria. So this whole thing is a huge subject, and it's very, very strange, okay? Now, this was posted on our group, I think it was yesterday, and it was, thank you, Alan Henderson, so thank you for that. Excuse me. And it's interesting timing, and these things, rarely coincidences, always reasons you get thrown stuff. But this does tie in then with something I've wanted to talk about for a while. And that's where this is going to come in. Because another situation we've had, which, what have we got down the bottom? Sorry, the camera's in the way, so I can't actually see all the screen. So London is Damascus.
Wait, Cambridge is Troy?
Cambridge is Troy, yeah. Then we got Bath is Rabbath Aman. So there we go. York is Babylon. So it's a huge subject, not one I know about. I'm not going to talk about it much tonight. But just want to give people an idea that there have been different ideas out there, okay? It's not a new idea that the history we normally get is the only version. So what we got here? Excuse me. One with Welsh history. Is that Michelle there? Hello, Michelle. North Star. The language and the history at the same time. Yeah, they do tie in with each other. So, right, okay. So I'll try and get through all these topics. Please put in the comments if I miss some out. And the first one I want to talk about is... the book was ready. Bear with me 1 second. Where's Flamenco gone? It's the big, thick history book that was sitting right there. My boys have taken advantage of my absence to play their games.
I haven't seen it.
Here it is. I've got it. See, always blame the children. And it turns out you got it right in your hand. Here's another thing I want to talk about, which is called new chronology. So what I'm going to do, like I said, on the Sunday evening, is introduce a lot of topics and try and give some sort of overview, and then we'll do smaller videos in the week and hit particular topics. And also on Sunday evening, normally we have guests. We had something planned today, but it snowed, so there you go. That had a bit of trouble. All right, so a snow day would be great. Yes. Yeah, well, a snow day here means you stay at home as opposed to staying home at the moment with the lockdown. Doesn't make a lot of difference, does it? Now, what?
Stay at home and sled.
Yeah, we do a bit of sledging there. So, right, so what I want to talk about first of all is this sort of a general idea about when you're looking at these projects and these ideas, we need to come from a completely different mindset. Until we change our mindset, all we're ever doing is, as I think Marcel put the other day, we're arranging the leaves on one of the branches when actually it's the tree and the roots of the problem. Okay? So that's what we're looking at. Now then, one of the people I want you to think about, have you ever heard of someone called Scaliger? Scaliger.
No.
Scaliger.
I haven't.
You haven't, aren't you? Have you? Oh, there we are, you see. Now, this should be the first person that I will try. Hang on, let's see if I can do a sort of...
You can talk to him online on Skype.
I'm not going to talk to him. He's been dead about 400 years, but there we go. It'd be quite impressive if I talked to him, wouldn't it? So what I'm going to do here is try and... I'll put some on the screen so I can try and write stuff on the screen. Okay. Yeah, so this person called Scaliger. So I'm just giving you a chance to see if we get any comments on Scaliger. Do we? Arnie, can you see?
XY said paradigm shift.
A paradigm shift, that's right, yes. Okay, alright, we'll just do this talking here. I want to read the comments as well. So I want to make this interactive if we can. A paradigm shift, yes. I'm not seeing anyone reply about Scaliger, sorry. He is... It's weird, isn't it? Because I hadn't heard of him until about a year ago, I suppose. He is the most important person in the whole of history. And none of us have even heard from him. I've heard of him, right? What he did, I will bring him up on... right, excuse me faffing about a bit. Like I said, I didn't have as much time to prepare as normal.
You're just going to Google search.
No, I'm not going to Google. I'm going to put him on Wikipedia just to show I haven't... Thank you,
found on Google search.
Gosh, here he is.
Joseph Justice Scaliger.
Right, okay. Hang on, I'm just checking. I haven't got his... Okay, thank you, on. Right, okay. Right, so this is... that's right, that's up on the screen. Excellent, okay. So here he is on Wikipedia, okay. So I'll just introduce the guy. Joseph Justice Scaliger. As you can see, 16th century, a little bit into the 17th. He was a French Calvinist, and that's very important, all right? He was a religious leader and scholar. Known for what... This is like a euphemism, all right? A euphemism is something... It's a lot more serious than what you're trying to make it sound like. So he's known for expanding the notion of classical history from Greek and ancient Roman history to include all these other... Whoops, a daisy. Don't know what happened there. Yeah, what's going on? Just trying to do that. Highlight this. So Persia, Babylonian, Jewish, ancient Egyptian history. Alright, now I'd highly recommend that people take some time to read about this guy, okay? Because what he does, you can read about his travelling and his life and all that kind of thing. But what we get onto is, we get onto his academic work, because this bloke here, who no one's heard of anymore, he is the one who created the time frame that all history gets put onto. So, oh, I really am tiny, aren't I? Hang on a second. I'm trying to, no point me gesturing. So bear with me one sec. I'm just going to fix that a little bit. What a shambles today, eh? I can't change the screen share until I'm on the screen. Oh, there we go. Alright, so you can see me changing it. But then you can't read all the text, but there you go. Alright. So what he's done there, I'll come back to that. There was a religious thing going on. He was a Calvinist. He was up against the Jesuits. There was this great big turmoil going on. What he then did, working from a small library, and he's moving around, caught up in religious doctrines and wars, he created what you would call the ladder of history. So he's the one who put this time frame together. You might have seen the term Scaligerian chronology or something like that. Don't let the name put you off. It's just because this bloke called Scaliger came up with it. So if you ever think when you do history, right, you get this idea that why do we know that the Egyptians were like, well, some people used to say 4000 BC, probably 2000 BC starts, and Alexander the Great's sort of minus 300, and then the Romans come here, you know, and the Persians were there somewhere, and then we have, you know, biblical times, and then we've got Roman period, then we got what we call the Dark Ages, all these kind of things all around the world. It all kind of ties together. Do you ever think how we get that? Yeah, it's quite mind-blowing when you start to think about it, okay? Because what he did, create what I would think as the easiest way to think of it as a ladder. So he put the rungs. He said, right, these are the big events in history, which I'm going to date, It's going to be the start of Egyptians, start of Persians, start of Macedonians, Alexander the Great, start of Romans, blah, 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 all the way down. And what we've done ever since, amazing as this may seem, and this blows my mind, we look at some like Fomenko or Alan Wilson, these great historians, all the mainstream historians have done ever since is maybe shuffle these rungs of the ladder up and down slightly, but at no point has anyone said, hang on, is the ladder right? Because every event since then has been hooked on to one of these rungs. So you think, this event must have happened during the time of Alexander, therefore we'll hook it round about, the minus 300 or 300 BC. And this one seems to tie in with Caesar. Well, that's about 55 BC, and that's how it's done. This is how your history comes about. All right, it's built on the workings, more or less, of this one man, and there's another guy who worked with him. And I'll dig out his name in a second. Hang on, I just want to see. I've got any comments on there, aren't I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good. Right. Hang on. Just so I can see what's going on as well, which I can't do at the moment. Sorry about this. I do want to see what's happening, so I'm hoping people will comment about this. Right, here we go. There's loads of comments. Right, okay. You fiddle the chronologies. Yes, Julius Caesar Scaliger was... yes, now, good spot there, David. His father was called Julius Caesar Scaliger, which might be a big clue there. That all is not as it may seem with the mainstream history, all right? So this one is a bit of a brain shatterer tonight, okay? Just to warn you. And I'm not going to try and give everything in one go, because it'll just be too much. Now, so... another thing I want to throw in the mix. Have you heard of what's called new chronology? New chronology. Hang on. Does it say new chronology on here somewhere? Oh, I should say new chronology, because this is just the name of the book. Anyway, the theory is called new chronology. And this is one of the latest manifestations of it. Which is the... well, you can't see me then, it's a huge book. This is 1 volume out of 7, alright? So I haven't read all 7 of these or studied them, but I've studied this one quite in depth. And I'm not going to go on to what their conclusions are about what the real history of the world is, because, well, frankly, I don't agree with them yet, but hey, after another 6 volumes, who knows, okay? Yes, as Michelle says, the Great Awakening, alright? Liam and Noel Scaliger. Thank you, Andrew. I've got a great Noel Gallagher quote I like to use, but anyway, there's the... so this guy's called Fomenko. And these are all things, if you're looking for things to get interested in, obviously you've got the Wilson and Blackett stuff about British history. You've also got people like Fomenko, find out about Scaliger, find out about how the history's put together. Right, I'll just give a little brief... a brief glimpse into this, okay? Before we get on to the history of everything. I feel like I'm doing that already. Anyway, this is a bit of a ramble. Right, so what they did, they explain that this idea of a new chronology goes right the way back to the time of Scaliger. So when Scaliger was putting his ideas together, 1580s, 1590s, there were loads of people saying this is nonsense. It's completely wrong. And there was enormous amount of debate that these dates were rubbish and that he was stretching history too long. Things didn't go back as far as he said they did. Some of the rungs were in the wrong places. There was lots going on. There were even, if you look in the Royal Societies, it's Royal Society in London, they had meetings about it. They were trying to reject the work. Some of it was taken on, some of it was thrown out. But this is controversial, okay? This is the point I'm trying to get across. When we put a lot across of Wilson and Blackett's work and the things about the British history that we have been taught and is rammed down our throat from a young age might not be correct. You have to realise it's because loads of it might not be correct, okay? If correct at all. So we shouldn't be afraid to challenge this. And if someone says to you, oh, that can't be right because it doesn't agree with such and such writer, or it doesn't agree with such and such historian, or it doesn't agree with such and such, the answer is, so what? So what? Because they come from a guessing point of view, and they've created this ladder, which we're all expected to crawl up forever and not challenge it, okay? So what did Scaliger get wrong? What was his objective? Thank you, Rob. That's the kind of question. I love that. So it was... right, Restoring Reality. I don't know your name, but thank you for the comment there. You sort of jumped way ahead on the new chronology stuff. And I have things to say about this point, but that'll be for another time. Right, Pompeii, when you say Pompeii, he's referring, I assume, to the eruption of Vesuvius, which is said to have happened in 70 AD, but in the new chronologies, they say that might have happened as recently as 1631. So it's miles off. The whole thing is dated wrongly. But anyway, I think there's more than one eruption, and maybe that on its... The danger with all these things is on their own, they become very complicated. This was the difficulty this week when I put the videos up about there may not have been a Roman invasion as we know it. The Romans arrived, they were beaten militarily, they occupied a tiny part of the south of Britain, and then they negotiated an arrangement, and that's as far as they got. But then people say, oh, what about this pot we found here, and what about this building here, and stuff like that. And the next video I'm going to do, which hopefully I'll have up tomorrow, talks then about why there's so much stuff in Britain that appears to be Roman, but it's not Roman at all. It's actually British. It's just in a Roman style, okay? So this is why you have to get your head around a different way of thinking at it. Now, one of the things that really caught my eye in here, oh God, thank goodness I got my glasses, is that, yeah, what does Scaliger get wrong? One of the things about Scaliger was, I think it, yes, it wasn't a matter of him getting it wrong, he just made a lot of it up. He had to produce a complete time frame of history, and he just filled it in. I mean, I don't know if he even had an agenda. I don't think he even goes that far. Right, so one of them, there's all sorts of things in here, like, for example, I know this gets, a lot of people get quite shocked when they hear this. When you look at, for example, the Roman writers like Livy, who is, you know, oh, it's Livy says this, Livy says that. The oldest copy of Livy's work was not discovered until 1469. So although he was said to have lived around about, 1st century BC, there's no copies of his work before 1469. And some people say that was some sort of forgery, and it was of dubious provenance. And then some more examples are found a bit later. So you're talking about stuff, manuscripts dated in the 15th century, which are supposed to be 1,500 years older than that. So how much can you rely on these? I'm not saying they're wrong, okay? What the point I'm trying to make too is there's so much veneration of things like Roman history and Roman sources. This is the thing with Scaliger. If he had an agenda at all to answer Rob Shaw's question there about what was his objective, one of those seems to have been to really cement this idea of Rome and Greece being the centre of it all. That's one objective. Now, one I want to particularly bring up, because this does tie in directly with Wilson and Blackett, okay? And this is looking at the chronology of ancient Egypt. I'm not going to spend too long on that, but what I do want to do is... hang on. Well, it talks about when the first pharaohs were, how the dates are all over the place. There's an example, for example, here, right? For the founding of Egypt, to give you an idea of what we're talking about. Good old Champollion, he dates ancient Egypt as beginning around 5867 BC. Alright, so if we take it from roughly today, say 2000, okay? He says that ancient Egypt is almost 8,000 years old. Right. Another French historian, Lesser, he says it goes back to almost as far, 5770 BC. So, and then we come down to Mariette, and he says about 5000 BC. It's 1,000 years difference. It's a lot. You know, we're not talking, did he come down in September or October? That's 1,000 years of difference. And then Chabas says 4000 BC. And then Maya says 3180 BC. And Andrzej, oh my goodness, good Russian name here, Andrzejewski, I think it is, about 2850 BC. So we're now down to less than 5,000 years ago, and some people are dating ancient Egypt as 8,000 years. You know, that's 3,000 years difference. You know, we're not talking a precise science here, are we? And then we've got people like Palmer, 2224 BC, and if you go to Alan Wilson, he's talking about 2000 BC, or about 1900 BC. So there's a massive range there. Now, one of the ones which I really need to find is the Trojan War. Here it is. Phew. I did try and prepare this. The Trojan War. Now, you all read Wilson and Blackett book, Trojan War, 650 BC. Okay, what Wilson and Blackett have done there is really, really quite remarkable. If you're not aware of the book, just to give you a quick overview, it's absolutely crucial because the Trojan War, right, you've got to rewind a little bit. British history, a lot of it is based on the Trojan War. The Trojan War is a pivotal event. So even though it's thousands of miles away and thousands of years ago, it might not seem immediately obvious. It's a crucial cornerstone of British history because the British claim to have come from Troy. And this gets complicated because there's two Troys, but anyway, the Troy that we're all familiar with. And what Wilson and Blackett do is show that it took place round about 650. Because if we go back to 1200 BC, when the mainstream historians say it is, or even 13 or even 1400 BC, nothing works because we got this 500-year gap. And they say, British history is a load of rubbish because there's this massive gap. If Troy happened about 1200 BC, how is it the British didn't turn up till 500 BC? There's 700 years of history. And they got all this crazy stuff then, like the ancient Dark Ages. What's his name? It's Eric Prince, the lecturer. The most published and famous lecturer in the whole world. He's got chairs and university courses and departments named after him. He's fantastic. And all he talks about is the ancient Dark Ages. This period of 500 years where nothing happened. There was no buildings, no pottery, no movement, no trade. Yeah, I think it's the year he has is 1441, something like that. And he calls it, the day the world stopped. Check his videos out. Great lecturer, very interesting. He's been a whole career, I think about 18 major books. He's won Nobel Prizes, all about explaining why there was this 500 years of darkness. And then Wilson and Blackett come along and say, no, actually, there was no 500 years of darkness. You've just made a mess on the chronology. Because they were aware of this kind of thing. And one of the reasons I want to bring these people in, these Russians, because they had massive teams of Russian academics, really clever guys, going right back to the 60s and through the 70s, 80s, 90s, decades of research, teams of brilliant people using mathematics. And I read it. I was like, if only they'd read Wilson and Blackett first. They would know why they're getting the answers that they're getting. But I just want to read one little bit, all right? Because the whole thing is it's a bit all over the place. We're talking about dating being all over the place. This show's all over the place, all right? Now, what we're going to look at here is right, there's people who are supposed to have lived in the 4th century BC. We've got Hellanicus and Damascus. And what they've done, and their matter was supported by Aristotle, and they are arguing that Rome was founded by Aeneas and Ulysses. And where Rome is in the world is another fascinating question, but enough for one night, all right? So what we see is this evidence for them finding Troy and where the name comes from. I'm paraphrasing. So the key point is, if you look at the old historians going way, 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 way back, the foundation of Rome occurs immediately after the Trojan War, which both Aeneas and Ulysses took part in. Ulysses being another name for Odysseus, presumably. But what they call consensual chronology, right? That's the one we all agree to. I love that word, consensual. So in the consensual chronology of Scaliger, the interval between the Trojan War, which allegedly took place in the 13th century BC, 1200 odd, and the foundation of Rome, which is said to have occurred in the 8th century BC, is 500 years. This means one of the following. The foundation of Rome took place 500 years later than is generally thought. The Trojan War occurred 500 years later. Or the chronographers, the people who work out the dates of all these things, are deliberately lying about Aeneas and Ulysses founding Rome. Also, what happened to Romulus in this scenario? And then it goes on about other things. And I was reading that thinking, did you want to get a copy of Trojan War 650? Because it explains exactly what happened to everyone. Well, the option they haven't put in there is the Trojan War was at 650. And yes, Rome was founded after then. So there is no contradiction. There's no problem. You just need to move this 500 years out, which is something they do a lot later in this book as well. So I would recommend have a look at this, because then you've got how many hundreds of years have been added into history and moved around, and there's a lot of problems with it. And the other thing I want to get on to then is the whole point of when I get frustrated, there's a chance because for me to have a bit of a ramble and a rant, is that, Peter, Centuries of Darkness by Peter James. Yeah, I've got that book behind me as well there. That was it's a tough read, that one. Centuries of Darkness. Well done, everyone who read through all that. I read most of it, and it's quite difficult. Anyway, that's what we got here. Let's just catch up with some of the comments. I don't want to make this one way tonight. So David Church, he obviously knows about new chronology, and he's written, King James wrote the Bible about 1640, shortly before tea time. All finished by 1700, by tea time. So restoring reality. In the year of the Lord, I'm exploring the idea that we are living in the part of the Bible described as being after Jesus rules as king on earth, when Satan was loosed for a short season to deceive. Okay. I don't know where to go with that. So King James I died in March 1625. Thank you, Rob. He missed his tea and crumpets. Okay, right, okay. So David Mosley's saying that Scaliger was a kind of backroom boy who came up with adjustments to history that suited the Vatican and certain European elites, hence his obscurity. It is really weird how he's so obscure, isn't it? How can the guy who set the framework for all of history, and none of us have heard of him, and he got pants, yes, and Michelle said probably got paid well for it. Right, Alan Rees, founding of Rome. I thought Rome was founded by Romulus. Well, that's the general story, isn't it? But there's 2 or 3 other possibilities, and Rome might have been named after someone else. And they also say in here, and I really don't want to throw too much in, because before I go any further, I want to say I do not go with where they're going on this book. I think if they read Wilson and Blackett, they could see why they got so many holes in their dates, and they could fix a lot of it. The Egyptian chronology, the Trojan War. When I did a bit of a review on some of this a year or 2 ago now, the way I looked at it was, these guys show you how to smash history into pieces. Wilson and Blackett show you how you also put it back together again. All right, so that's the difference between them. It's incredible. They had absolute genius work from Alan Wilson. So I thought it was a door. So looking at that, the reason I'm throwing all these things in one go, way more than anybody can take it in, is to show that we can't start from where we're taught in school and then that bit, and move it a bit and back a bit, move it. No, you got to get rid of that and start from here. Because the other thing, has anybody watched that film The Dig this week, which I'm told was on Netflix? Because I'm really near to this camera. I hate this camera. It's like full the screen like a balloon. I am a balloon. Oh, thanks, Anne. That's right. I am a balloon. Well, The Dig, if anyone saw it, was about... I didn't see it, by the way. I had a pretty good idea what was going to be in it, and turns out it was. It's about Sutton Hoo, in general terms, of the course, being TV. It's all about personalities and who found it and the people involved and all that kind of stuff, all right? It's very little, if any, of the programme was spent looking at the items and why do we think this is Saxon, or why do we think this is Angle, and what's his name, Redgilt, who seems to conveniently fit a time slot, and it's the same thing when you're looking at sites being identified as Saxon or sites being identified as being Roman. It's not a level playing field, and I guess this is the point I'm trying to get to. It's not a level playing field. They don't arrive at a site with a blank piece of paper and say, right, what evidence have we got? What could it be? Let's find. Because if you go to Sutton Hoo, nearly all the items, all the items are British items. There's an item with the Star of David in it, which shows a biblical link, which you wouldn't have with the Germanics. There's the purse, which seems to have the story of Gilgamesh, which shows the Babylonian roots. You got the writing, you got the gold, which connects with Byzantine, which is the sort of British Mediterranean trading. And if you see my video, it's a bit old now, but I want to do a newer, snappier one. The helmet's got a moustache like a Welsh boy, all right? So the video's called Do I Look Saxon? With his little moustache. Well, the Saxons famously had big beards, didn't they? So nothing about it looks Saxon, okay? And then you get into these arguments saying, but the helmet is what's called a Vendel helmet. And you say, okay, well, that sounds quite convincing. Why is it called a Vendel helmet? And you think, they found Vendel helmets all over Europe, hundreds of them. And they're all over Scandinavia, and this is what they wore, and we found another one that's identical. And that's when we walk away, isn't it? That's usually when we walk away. But no, when you look at it, for one, the famous picture, this beautiful gold and silver helmet, that's an artistic reconstruction, all right? It's been made to look like what they want to look like. The original, if you look at the original, you can find on eBay, on the internet quite easily. It's just little scraps, right? And you got this kind of bits of helmet, a little bit here and a bit there, and it looks
rusted.
very rusted. Yeah, it looks hardly anything like the final product. So for one, it's very scant evidence, and for two, that's another little question there. Can't watch TV. I find it. We got rid of our TV a long time ago. I'm going to ask another question, right? I want please to have a go with the comments here. How many Vendel helmets do you think there are or have been found? So just to give an idea, it's a kind of conical helmet. Yeah, you have a guess. Yeah, you can have a guess as well. Like a conical helmet. Well, you've seen Sutton Hoo, right? So it's kind of conical. It's a very vague term, so you could kind of throw in a few different helmets. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, apart from my head, which is very long and has got corners on it, most people's heads are pretty much the same shape and the helmet's fairly much the same, okay? What is TV? Don't even go there. Don't even go there, Taliesin. Don't even go there. Alright, so what are we going to think about Sutton Hoo? Any ideas? I'd love to see. Oh yeah, I got 2, 7. Yeah, you're remarkably good. You're very good. I only said 3. You're all much newer than I was. I assumed there'd be like 50, 60 of these things, okay? Have a look. Turns out, right, there are about 5 Vendel helmets in the world that have been discovered that are called Vendel helmets. But check this out. Out those 5, right, you could argue 6. There's 5 or 6, all right? How many of those... well, I can't be asking, could they put it in a question? But out of the first 5 they found, 4 were found in Britain. And 1 was found somewhere else. A place called Vendel. At a Vendel burial, you see. So you got this crazy situation where, because 1 was found in a Scandinavian place, automatically they're all Scandinavian, or they're all Germanic, you know, except towards Denmark somewhere they found it. And that's it. It's the end of the argument. This helmet's a Vendel helmet, therefore it can't be British. But most of them are in Britain. There's no level playing field to it. No matter how much stuff in Sutton Hoo, I've had spent so much time discussing with Anglo-Saxon groups and archaeologists and historians, going through, what's the mounds on Salisbury Plain, the Borough Mounds. What's Saxon about them? What is Saxon about them? They turn up, they declare it's Saxon, and then everything's just made to fit. And I've gone through the process where you've proven, as well as you can, that an item is far more likely to be British than Saxon. And the answer then is, yeah, well, it could be plunder, it could be trade. So this crazy situation whereby if anything slightly German makes the whole site German, anything British is probably stolen or trade or plunder. It's bizarre. Same with the Romans. Have a look when you get a chance. The Fort in the Wood, it's called. It's a project. It's ongoing as far as I know, although obviously with the COVID stuff, everything's messed up. But it was ongoing until a couple of months ago. It's a place up in sort of Cheshire, South Lancashire. And they found stone wall, right? A giant fort. Really excited. Well, they didn't even know it was a fort at first. All they done was find some walls. And it looks like a gatehouse. And it's like, yippee, we found a Roman fort. It's like, oh, how can you say that's a Roman fort? All he found is some stones. They hadn't even looked at it. They hadn't even marked it out. They hadn't even worked out how large it was, dated it, nothing. It's a Roman fort. And this is how ridiculous it gets, okay? Go on their website, have a look, okay? And it shows on there that it gets funnier. Because we're amazed we found a Roman fort here, because there's no record of a Roman fort in this area. Before this find, this area was considered to be, not significant for the Romans, not militarily significant. We're going to have to, so you think, well, obviously it's not Roman then, is it? You know, they got pretty good records of who went where and all that kind of stuff. No. We're going to have to rewrite what we know about the Romans. So, to make the site Roman, history has to get changed again. And this goes on and on and on, and you can find example after example after example. And the big thing that we're going to come on to in the next video during the week about the Romans in Britain is that once you get your head around the idea, you have to really spin your head a bit to just try somehow. I mean, no one's more versed in Romans than me. And I've got painted armies of Romans. I've got books. I've got loads of books, histories of Romans. I mean, I've really studied them. Really, really studied them. I'm not like throwing the whole thing out since it's nonsense from ignorance. Once you throw that idea out, that actually it could just be nonsense, this history we're being told, let's look at the information we can find. Let's not rubbish the British evidence and the British records, because it turns out, as Alan Wilson's always saying, it's the best recorded history of all of them. It's the oldest, it's the most extensive, the whole thing. Oh wow, tons of comments have suddenly flown up. Yeah, thank you, Robert. Yeah, there's iron-style bolts in Sutton Hoo ship, as opposed to the Scandinavians who use wooden bungs. Everything about it's British. Oh yeah, the other thing, thank you, Rob, because there was another thing I wanted to say before we moved on from that, was the other thing is the burial practice, okay? It's a boat-shaped mound. So another one of the proofs for Sutton Hoo being Anglo-Saxon is it's in a boat-shaped mound. Now, if you go around Britain, all around Wales, there's videos, look underneath the box, of us visiting boat-shaped mounds, like Kerry, who's overlooking in Nash Point. There's the massive ones up on Caer Craddock, or Man of the Gair, Fortress Mountain. They're all over the place, right? Go to Scandinavia, or not go there, but Google it or something, right? Just have a look, do a search, and find, because that makes it Scandinavian, right? Now, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, great film, Tony Curtis and, Douglas. Oh, Zeta Jones's husband, what's his name? Michael Douglas. Or his dad, Kirk Douglas. There's you. Shoot, you got there in the end. Vikings. Now, if you remember at the end of that, the whole film, if you remember, and the other film called, hang on, let's get the names right.
Which one?
There's one called Vikings that we saw. Remember?
We saw Long Ships.
Long Ships is the one, and Vikings the other. Thank you, Arnie. The whole point of the Long Ship story is that this funeral ship has been made for the Viking king, so when he dies, they can set him on fire, right? And I don't know, it's just Hollywood, it's nonsense. But all the films you watch and everything, the Vikings, they always get burnt on these funeral ships, or they have cremations or fire. That's their general MO, modus operandi for doing things. And yet, this boat-shaped mound means a Scandinavian, okay? So there's boat-shaped mounds all over Wales, and I would presume they were all over England as well, before everything got dug up and built on and whatever, okay? I'm sure you'll find more of them. I think there's some in Salisbury, for example. So, what happens then? So that's considered to be more evidence of being Anglo-Saxon. So, when you see things like this, what I'm trying to encourage people to do is question it. Because when I was doing this, it's probably 9 months ago now, I can't remember all the details, but actually I do remember all the details. If you try and find on Google or YouTube or wherever you want to do, right? Go to some historical sites and try and find how many boat-shaped burial mounds there are in the whole of Europe, right? There's hardly any. There's one main one. And again, this probably ties in with the Vendel helmet. Now, it strikes me, if you've got hundreds of them all over the place in Britain, and one overseas, which is within a sea's journey of Britain, the logical thing to do would be to make the one in Sweden British. I don't know. It's called sacrilege now in history. It's sacrilege. But no. What we do, you have to make all the other ones Anglo-Saxon and just pretend the Welsh ones don't exist. Just pretend there isn't one huge one on some of the ones I've mentioned, Man of the Gair and Nash Point and all over the place. They just pretend they don't exist. They remove them off the maps and a boat-shaped burial mound is another evidence for Sutton Hoo being Germanic when it's clearly British. Everything about it screams British. So, sorry, got myself a bit rambled on that one, because Sutton Hoo is just a great example, and it was on just this week. And if you look, please have a look in there. I'll try and do a shorter video on it, and snappier one. And you can see Alan Hassel did brilliant work. You can look at the physical evidence and see all the British markings and writing and symbols, and it's just And we're up against the same thing with the Romans here, like that one in Chester. I got into correspondence with them, shall we say, saying that Why'd you say it's Roman? So, we're keeping an open mind. Yeah, but you've got a little Lego figure of a Roman soldier on your website, and it says we discovered a Roman fort. It's not an open mind, is it? It's a closed mind. You've made your mind up. But there was one that they found up there. I remember up in that northern area, another discussion I got into some. I think it said Catug, Cattwg on the side of a pot, which they're trying to work out must be some Roman manufacturer, because British people being too stupid to make anything. And then if you look at the Welsh for it, you can see Cartug would be your lucky place. So because they found another one then in the Midlands. And they go, this Roman guy was really busy, wasn't he? Because his name's there and his name's there, but then actually it's an old Welsh word probably. So there you go. So you go through this kind of thing all the time. We're all with you, Ross. Don't let them grind you down here. So what I'm saying is, when you look at these things, you really need to not... always ask to back up and prepare to question, because this mainstream narrative we've been fed is built on sand, as I said at the beginning of the thing, right? So, on the Romans, I'm going to try and cover this in a video later in the week. The point here is that if you go through the list of the old British kings, which Marchell has done a brilliant job, has gone all the way back, right through Lear and Lud and Mulmud and all these, all the way back. Maybe it's 1100 BC, right? It's the best recorded history in the world. Yeah, there's a couple of quotes I'm going to read off there before they scroll off. And those British records of British kings talk in great detail about certain kings building towns and villages in the style of the Romans. That's what they did. They built these towns in that style. I spent 5-6 years of my life living in the Middle East, because they got the money over there with the oil and everything. I had a great time over there, and most of what was happening is people like me were coming over with Western technology and Western ways of doing things, and we were building stuff. So I was there. I was brought in to help with the launch of the Abu Dhabi International Exhibition Centre, ADIEC, and get the first shows off the ground and that kind of thing. Well, it was a Western model, because they wanted to have what we had, and they were trying to create a market. And the buildings there, and the way it's unkind to say copying, because this is the modern way of doing things, and they wanted the best, and that's the way they did it. And it seems to be the same thing with the Britons. You imagine the situation. I want to say Sian Morgan, I hope you're watching. She calls herself Dizzy, which is ridiculous. Her insight and everything is more spot on than all these historians, okay? One of the things she said on there, I meant to copy the whole comment on Facebook, is brilliant. So they come up there, they've tried to invade, they've got nowhere, and they want our stuff. And they're saying, well, if you want our stuff, you're going to have to do something for us, okay? Because Britain had the iron, the gold, the copper, the tin in Cornwall, the lime for the kilns, you got the high quality coal, you got everything. This is Treasure Island. This would be like the richest people in the world. This idea of natives running around bareback, it's got to go. It's absolute nonsense. It's rubbish. It's ridiculous. They're the ones with all the wealth. They had this army. They'd been making metal goods until at least 1100 BC. Over 1,000 years of practice, and no one had thought to put a bit on their head to stop them getting hit by a sword. Or make some armour or something. They could make chariots. They'd seen the Romans, if the Romans are the inventors of everything, when Caesar had his first go in 54 BC. They knew what armour looked like. They knew how to fight. They knew how to make things. This idea they couldn't do anything is just... It's a bizarre kind of bigoted racism. That's all you can say about it. There's got Taliesin here. Sorry, I'm trying to remember what Taliesin is. Every week I forget. Quote from Alan Wilson. No positive work of any kind whatsoever was ever done in any British university to examine the truthfulness of ancient British history. Yeah, that's absolutely right. One of the things I always say is the only thing you see British in the British Museum is the sign on the door. That's it. Walk in. That's the last time you see the word, right? So Robert Pierce, I questioned someone who is believed to be in the know on this subject. He told me that Saxons also used iron bolts on their ships. I'm still sceptical. Well, I looked into that. Oh, and was that Robert? Or was it replying to Robert? Sorry, I think someone's replying to Robert then, I think. Sezu. Sezu. I don't know who Sezu is. Yeah, I've looked into this. David's very good on this, because he lives in, some of the time, in Denmark area. So North Germany, that sort of area. And there's some tradition there of putting iron bolts in ships, but it's very, very rare. And if you consider that the iron itself was in Britain, and they had access to the iron to make the iron bolts, it would be far more likely, wouldn't it be more likely, that a ship using iron bolts in the British fashion found in Britain is at least an outside chance, 1 in 1,000 say that it's British, as opposed to coming from an area where the vast majority, almost all the ships, are made with wooden dowels and bungs, and not with iron bolts. And I think the smoking gun in this is if you go to, if you look at the Sutton Hoo, what are they called? I think it's called the Sutton Hoo Society. You'll find it easy enough, you search for it. They are building a replica Sutton Hoo ship, okay? This is just cherry on the top of a great big mushy cake. Because what they're doing, they're rebuilding the Sutton Hoo ship, okay? And they're using wooden bungs. Oh, what do they call them? Something toes, wood toes or something. And they bang them in, and the idea is they swell with water and they make a wonderful, it's a great system. I'm not saying who made better boats, I have no idea, right? But it's, the reconstruction of the boat they're making is using wooden bungs, right? Not the iron things. And the crazy thing about this, do you know how Sutton Hoo was discovered in the first place? Hey, do you know how it was discovered? I think so. I jump in. I probably do. Well, the first thing they found to make them think there was a boat there was the remains of the iron bolts. They're in a boat shape. All the wood had rotted, of course. If they had been made with wooden bungs, as they're doing in their recreation, the bungs would have rotted. So what you had was these patterns of nails or bolts or whatever, rivets, call them what you like. Anyway, alright, the UK was the Tarshish of the Bible. Everyone wants to get back to the Bible, don't they? I'm going to do a big thing on that. And we've got the book coming out soon, Britain's Hidden Christianity. I can now get on with that. Now the hieroglyphics is finally out the door. And, right, I'm going to have to jump away because I've got to introduce my grand history of everything. Just an introduction to it, alright? That must be the longest, like an hour long introduction to a 5-minute presentation. Right. First, people don't mind. I just indulge myself a bit now because I think it. Well, I don't know. See what you think. So here's our world, okay? Funny enough, there's nothing in the middle of this one. Now, I was going to put the links out. I'll try and put them up tomorrow if you want to follow up yourself. But another area, I can't go on too long. Another area in which the universities have completely stagnated and become moribund and will not look at any evidence or change their ideas or anything is physics. This isn't going to be a long talk about physics, but I'd highly recommend, I know there's lots of people in our group who are interested in things like Electric Universe and Velikovsky, got his books there. Mind you, Velikovsky gets a bit of a bashing in here. Interesting. Russians falling out with each other. That's another discussion why they fell out. What we're going to use, oh no, we only use cross-ply laminated wood. Oh, there we are, okay. Yeah, in the 80s, English would jokingly ask if we had inside toilets, yes. Right, anyway, sorry, I've got to get on to this. Concentrate now, because this is quite a tricky one. One of the people I want to look at, I want to try and get him on the show soon, is Andrew Johnson, who's a regular guest on Richard Hall's channel. You know, the guy in the shitty blue fleece? And I had quite a bit of correspondence with him. It's been a few months, but on the age of the Earth, how it was formed. And if you go over, I'll try and put the link in. It won't be. Well, I might try and do it tonight or tomorrow morning. So I don't want to claim someone else's work. All my theories not based on things the other people have done their hard work. I'm just, I hate that term. Dot joining the dots. Anyway, but I'm very immersed in this stuff, so things start to appear. So what you have is the formation of the Earth. Now, when you look at the planets have formed, a very simple experiment you can do. All you need is a spaceship. No, you can actually do this with bubbles on Earth. I've tried it. Not quite as good. One of the demonstrations they show that if you have a bubble spinning in a vacuum, if you put something heavier in it, and it spins, all the heavier things will move to the outside. Okay. I'm just going to jump in this I can do a more detail. We'll look at that for more detail. The point of it is, if you start off with, say, a block of ice or water, the solid items form on the surface. We are told that the Earth has a solid core, and that's where the weight of the Earth is. It's a solid metal core, which is why it's magnetic and all these kind of things. And it possibly gets less dense as it goes out. Whereas, if you look at it in practical terms, that's almost impossible to do if you have these bits appearing through space. And then you get questions like, where does all the water come from? Where's all the water come from? Why have we got oceans full of water? They're pretty big, you know, Pacific, Atlantic. Where's all the water come from? It's a big topic. So, of course, the alternative way of looking at it is they started off with the water. You've got this big bubble or a solid block of ice. Things gradually attaching to it, making it into a more solid sphere. So the centre is like a liquid. And then as it cuts through the magnetic rays, so electrical magnetic field, which is space. I don't want to get too technical here. It takes heat. It creates heat as it spins around the sun. You know, it's generating heat. So the water expands and pushes these bits out. And we can go on to that more and more and more. But what you end up with is a world where the end centre be water and expands and expands. And this explains that thing you see. Aha, I got a prop, look at this. You know the famous thing everyone knows about, where a bit of South America here will sort of fit into Africa there, okay? An idea is that this is joined together and moved across. What is far less obvious... Told you I'm going to blow your brains upside down today, alright? What's less obvious is if you mess about with the other side of the globe as well, you can make the other side fit, alright? Have a go at it. It takes a little bit more imagination. You have to sort of... So, how's that possible? If, as you know, Britain and America are drifting so many inches apart every year. Alright? So, you can imagine America's still and Britain's moving, whichever you prefer. Sorry, but this gap is getting wider. So the implication should be, and funny enough, talked to Patricia about this Pacific's getting small the other side, but not so. Not so. It would seem the world's getting bigger. Or it's larger than when these land masses originally formed. Now, the reason I mention this, we go flat. We're going to go flat. We could do flat Earth another day. I tell you, it's worth having a look at. When I first saw the flat Earth theories, a lot of rubbish. Look at this. I think I lost about 4 months' sleep trying to disprove all them. Okay. I think it's that guy Gerardism. If you want to look him up, 100 proofs the world's flat, and I think I managed to disprove 98. There's a couple more I'm still working on. So always have an open mind, though. Okay. But the point of this demonstration, and there's other things you can see, like dinosaurs would have been too big to stand up on their own legs, and their heart wouldn't be able to pump the blood around if they had the gravity we have today. So something strange has been going on, and it would seem it's the Earth expanding. And as it's got hotter and hotter and hotter in the core, what's eventually happened is this becomes a steam, and then eventually it stops expanding. So the Earth is, well, a few inches a year, I think it is, between Britain and America. So it's still expanding, but very, very slowly, okay? Oh, this is great. On flat Earth now. Brilliant. Tell Harry. Curvature maths don't work. Also, heavy circular weights spun fast enough become weightless. Yeah, I think... Yeah, alright. I don't want to get too much into physics, but the problem is our love affair with gravity, which is also why it doesn't exist, but that's another story, okay? The reason I brought this in is because we need to have a rethink about the history of the world. And I'm not... Have you ever read the book, Everything You Know Is Wrong? I think it's just down there, I think, by Lloyd Pye. And what he does in that book is he goes through the classical situation of what I call, well, it's not my expression, but refer to it a lot, a false dichotomy. Where you're either a creationist and you think God made everything about 4000 BC, or you're an evolutionary person who believes in some sort of Big Bang event. It doesn't have to be that particular event, but some sort of... And then through cells and cells joined together and became, we got what we call evolution. And the problem is, the evolutionary guys are really good at destroying the creationist argument, and the creationist people are really good at destroying the evolutionary argument. One example being, with evolution, you get I'm going to go into them. The point is, there could be a third solution, which is neither, okay? This is what you have to get your head around. This comes up in the hieroglyphics, but anyway, I'll stay away from that one. Yeah. Yes, there's no fossils in the seabed near the tectonic plates, but lots of fossils in the mountains. Yeah, all sorts of weird stuff doesn't work. This we get to Velikovsky and Catastrophism and all that, and it's a massive world of knowledge. And the universities are not looking at any of it, okay? They're not looking at any of it. It's all the good stuff's happening outside. For example, why are there seashells and sea creatures on top of Everest? If you go with gradualism, which is akin to evolutionary theory, every year Mount Everest has grown by a couple of inches as these plates shove into each other, or as Africa comes ramming into Europe, whatever theory you go with. So a couple of inches a year. Everest is 29,000 something feet. So, it must be so many million years old. But this doesn't hold up when you look at it, if you look at a lot of these writers. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The point I'm trying to make, though, and we come on to all those things, have more chats about them, is that with a world like this, how old it is we don't know, but it might be a lot less than we think it is. Not for creationism reasons, just because scientific reasons it looks like it's not that old. Like in Velikovsky proves pretty well that Jupiter, for example, the wrong planet, hang on a second, Venus would only be 6,000 years old and be very hot, and the scientific consensus, it would be really freezing cold ice block, and he was proved right, 600 to 800 degrees hot, and it would seem that Venus is only 6,000 years old. So this idea that we live in this Newtonian clockwork, planets go round for millions and millions and millions of years, doesn't seem to work. Right, hang on a second, I'll get some more comments. Commonly accepted that Britain was attached to mainland Europe millions of years ago. Well, yeah, it's commonly accepted. I never, as soon as someone says commonly accepted, I immediately go, why is that then? There's not really a proof, is it, as such? I would say, yeah, it's probably thousands rather than millions of years, but it would seem to. What else we got here? Mammoth bones in Carew Castle. Well, mammoth bones been a great one. Is that there are caves and digs where what might be considered almost prehistoric, like dinosaur-type bones and mammoth bones, mixed in with human bones. So this whole idea of dates could be all wrong. Good to see Basil Brown was finally recognised by the British Museum. Oh, right, okay, if you put something up about Basil Brown, or send me a message. I don't know Basil Brown. I don't know anything about him. So anyway, where I'm going to get to on this grand history of everything, this is going to be a 2-hour film. A lot more detail about how the planets are formed. And then another myth you have to throw in here is this idea of an ice age, where the whole planet becomes covered in ice. And I'll do a separate video on it, but if you go through Velikovsky, all these ideas are based on maths and science. You need energy. You need energy to create that much ice. It's like you need to turn on a plug on a fridge, or a freezer. You need energy. Or you need to dissipate energy, depending on which way you look at it, okay? And also, where's all the liquid come from to cover the whole globe in ice and snow? Where's all that come from? Where's it all go afterwards? And how could it happen so quickly? How can you have mammoths frozen to death with bits of food stuck in their teeth? It's this kind of... It's not a gradual thing, okay? Genesis is a creation story.
Oh, I'm dead.
Sorry?
It's different to yours. My chat's broken.
Your chat is broken.
It's all the way back here, which was ages ago.
Have you tried scrolling down?
No.
Alright, sorry. Yeah, okay. Alright, sorry. Anyway, I need to start winding up. It's getting on a bit now. 9:15. Wait a minute, the point... What I want people to think about is... right, okay. I want to finish off the Roman thing. Alright, wait a minute. The point of this is that what you do have is an ice cap or a pole. Hope you can see my hand like that, okay? And we always assume it's sort of here. Now, if you look into it, you'll find this moves all the time. Alright? It's so many meters a year, okay? And it was quite an interesting time last year when the sort of true north, magnetic north, were more or less in line, which happens very rarely because of the wobble of the Earth. But if you go into some of the stuff Alan Wilson's written, and Catastrophism, things like that, you'll see the Earth also gets knocked around now and again. It's not a regular thing. So, if you imagine the Earth tilting a bit, this ice cap... See, people always talk about the ice cap moving. I think it's easier to think of it the other way, which is why I got my friend here out, is the Earth moving, okay? And this ice cap staying still. So the point of this is... And I want to put this in because it underpins a lot... Well, not underpins, but it fits in with a lot of stuff we're going to be doing. Is at some point, the ice caps have moved south, what we would call south, it's all relative, and would have covered Northern Europe and Britain. Alright? Now, the big question is, would this have been the time, would there have been people there before this happened? So we're talking about big time history now, okay? So if this has come in there, what would have happened to the people who were there is they would have been driven to warmer climes because they'd been frozen. It would have been uninhabitable. So this would then explain why we've got very ancient things in Britain. People say 10, 12,000 years old. I'm not sure if anything could be much older than that, but there you go. And those areas, which would have been very hot normally, they become more temperate. They become more inhabitable because the cold part moving towards them. So this area would have become an ideal place to live. And then as the time goes by, and this starts to recede again, obviously a very shortened version of the story, starts to recede again, these people are allowed to move back up again, which could tie in with the migrations that started about 1800 BC. So I just want to get that idea out there. I like to do a proper presentation to put the whole thing together. Because what we're finding more and more evidence is that, for example, all the biblical site names seem to have place names in Britain. And we get Marcel on next week with a massive long list of them. And then you got things like at the beginning of this, Comins Beaumont talking about Bible events taking place in Britain. And you got all these stories which seem to show that everything started out from Britain and went out and then came back. And then it seems ridiculous because a lot of the stuff you can also show did take place in the Middle East. You know, it's things like ancient Egypt and some of the stories in the Bible and stuff like that do seem to have happened where they were. So we've got this kind of problem where you've got Troy. Troy's a great example. Troy is a brilliant example. You've got all this evidence for there being a Trojan War in Cambridgeshire, which seems to fit with the accounts of Homer. You know, the weather, the grey seas, the rain, you read the Iliad, all the description. He's not describing some nice warm place down in Anatolia. He's describing a British winter, mostly. It's quite grim and miserable. He never uses the word blue. The skies are grey, the water's black and grey, and the geography fits, and the archeology fits, and it seems to be in there. But that doesn't mean there was no Trojan War also fought in Anatolia, does it? Because also there we have the... ask these comments. It's you could have both. So you've got the 1100 BC, which is the one Marcel's been researching, and I think ties in with what Comins Beaumont was talking about, which is why I mentioned at the beginning, and also could explain some of the holes in this, flamenco, is you have a situation where different events over long periods are being glued together, and then either run as one story, or no stories, or disappeared, or changed. And this is what you have to think about when you're looking at history. It gets quite difficult. You've got to look at the evidence. So what we're looking at there is a situation I want people to think about, is when we're talking about migrations, maybe it was a two-way thing. And also the thing which always puzzled me was that this idea that when they did arrive, say and Alexander Thom would date the first people with the stone circles up in Scotland about 1800 BC, and it seems quite convincing. He's talking about alignments and things. I don't know. There'd be no one on this country, and my explanation for that would be that was the period leading up to it when this ice mass, if you like, this pole, had come down and made Britain pretty much uninhabitable. So when these people turned up, I think they went up north to check when things are ready to go back again, and check the astronomy. And then the mass migrations occurred again, 1700 BC. And then we've got all the other stuff. Anyway, so I just want to throw that out there. Could the pyramids be a defensive weapon grid to reinforce the magnetic field to withstand the sun's regular nova and the blast of deadly cosmic radiation? Well, there's a big question. I think we hardly understand the pyramids, but what I would say is I've got some unpublished work here from Alan Wilson, which I've got to get out, showing a lot about the purpose of the pyramids. And why they're where they are, and why there's no mummies in them. Expat Michelle, if the world expands much further out than the NASA logo map, so there's land beyond the poles. Well, if it's a globe, I don't know how we can have land beyond the poles, so I have to explain that one. Right, North Star from Independent Tropical Ice Age Merthyr. Keep the faith and try to burn yourself out, Ross. Safe blood. Oh, I'm far from burnt out now. I am really re-energized and ready to go for the next one. But thank you very much, North Star. I can't believe I've rambled on for an hour and 20 minutes. Almost. Thank you, on, yeah. Hang on. Let me still argue about the bolts, I think. More like nails like a shape, plus a longer, sleeker overall shape. I think we're talking about different types of boats. What I would say on that one, I wouldn't, rather than argue too much about, I think what I'm trying to get to is I'm glad the boats come back up again, is that, don't get me on Celtics, alright? We're going to cover Celtics again, this idea that we're not Celtic. There's no Celts in Britain, never were, or Ireland, alright? They were in the south of France, north of Italy, and the idea started getting applied to Britain not till the 18th century, Edward Lloyd and all that kind of stuff, okay? Just because the magnetic pole moves, it doesn't mean that the cold moves with it. No, you're quite right. I'm sorry if I gave that. I didn't mean to mislead people. As I mentioned, there was an occasion last year where the magnetic north and the true north coincided. I'm not talking about magnetic north here. And this is why I prefer to tilt the world than move the pole. I totally agree with you, E-Boyle. Thank you. Yeah, the magnetism is different. Although, yeah, anyway, let's not look at that. I'm talking about the physical north, so where the ice cap is. So navigating with magnets must have been a nightmare in those times. Right, okay, so yeah, I want to wrap things up there. Yeah, what I want to say was, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the bolts again. It's a good example there. But yeah, there were some, I shouldn't be as dogmatic either way. There were, well, it's rare, but there does seem to have been some boats made with metal rivets or nails in Denmark area, okay? It seems to be almost all the boats are made that way in Britain, so I would say it's more likely to be British. The point is, all we're asking for with this Britain's Hidden History project is a level playing field. When an unknown site is discovered, or a new site, we start off there. What's the evidence for different theories? And then start making conclusions. You don't start with, it's Roman, and then with this ridiculous situation, we have to prove a site in Britain with some British goods in it is not something else, you know. That shouldn't be the starting point. And to wrap it up, I saw a fantastic example recently. If you look at in northern Spain, this sums it up. You'll find the headlines. I'll try and put them on the links if I remember all this stuff. It's absolutely priceless. They discovered a whole what do they call them? Load of them. Oh yeah, get your violin ready for play out, on. There's some Welsh music to finish.
Yeah, David Churchill, he wants it again. There's barely anyone heard it the first time.
Oh right, okay, yeah. But I've already played a bit of Welsh music as we finish now. It doesn't have to be Welsh. We are going to do some Scottish and Irish and English. He's been working on some folk songs, so just happens to be a Welsh one this week. This is a Britain's thing, all right, not just Welsh thing. Anyway, so they discovered this whole load of new Roman forts in northern Spain. If you saw this article, I thought it was brilliant. And they discovered them by LiDAR. So what I want to know is how you can tell they're Roman. If you know about LiDAR, it's like a tracking thing. It shows that there's an outline of a wall. That's it. Doesn't really show you how old it is, or it certainly doesn't tell you who built it is. But they're assumed to be Roman. And it would seem to tie in with the British invasions there in the 3rd century. But hey, no one's going to mention it as British. So there we go. A bit of a strange one tonight, but I have got guests lined up for next week. We've got Marcel, a bit more like normal service resuming next week. There's a few things I want to get off my chest. And please send me emails, put comments up about how you would like the channel to progress, okay? Like I said, the sort of vision I have in mind, lots more short videos, try and do one every day at least, 15 minutes or so during the week on different topics so people can learn about a topic, make their comments and discuss it. Because if you have an hour-long thing, so many different things to comment on and discuss, it's very difficult. And then Sunday we can have more guests, more music, more fun, more general stuff. But today I just want to get this thing into people's heads. Just somehow you got to... Alan Wilson, right? I've very lucky and honoured to have met him quite a lot now, okay, and spent a lot of time talking and working with him. And he does bring a tear to my eyes because he's not quite the same as he was anymore, sadly. But he's still got that, if you can, it takes a while, you know, you spend a day or two with him and it sort of comes back and he's there, he just needs more stimulation and this bloody lockdown is a nightmare. It's the worst possible thing for him. He should be on speaking tours, he should be on TV, he should be stimulated all the time, and he'd go on till 100. So please keep sending letters to him, or send them to me, and I will print them out and send them on. I send him something almost every week anyway. I just shove them in. It's not a problem. Last week was a huge thing. I got to thank Karen for the family tree she sent me. And anyway, I'm distracting. But it's when you read something, you got to try and be more like how Alan Wilson reads something. This is what I aim to do. When I read something, like the story of Joseph in the Bible, which I'm not going to go through now, he explained that story to me. And it's like, I've seen his Moses in the Hieroglyphs book, and it's like, oh my goodness, how many times have I read that story? You know, the Lloyd Webber musical with Jason, the multicoloured dream coat. We all know the story, but you don't know the story until you read it and read it and read it. And he's got this amazing way of looking at something and just pushing away all preconceptions, all previous ideas, and just look at the evidence and read what it says, okay? And that's what this whole hour and 28 minutes of me rambling on was all about. Please don't come into anything with ideas. Come in with an open mind. An open mind means all that's been pushed out and it's open. Read the document and read what it says. Look at the evidence and then see where it takes you. And then have the ideas. All right. Okay, well, thanks for being so patient. I'm amazed so many people have stayed on the whole time. Absolutely amazing. Thank you very much indeed. I'm loving the content. I'll just do one quick look through, see if I've missed anything. Just because, we've done that when the pole moves. Quite right. Why the cold moves. Okay. Well, the cold does move. You can show historically when, Iceland's had warm periods and cold periods. And at one point, the North Pole was in Minnesota. So these things do move around. It's even in the Bible, isn't it, when Noah talks about the world declinating, which is probably a flip of the poles. But anyway, that's a whole subject. Everyone write to the MP about pursuing ancient British history, especially Troy 1 in Cambridgeshire. Yeah. Please, get busy. The M25's probably Roman. Anyway, okay, he's hanging on for Arnie to play. So let's do all that. Everyone's waiting for Arnie now. I know I'm just getting in the way for the middle hour while we do an Arnie gig. So thank you much, everyone. I'll do my little Arwen sign. Nothing sinister about it. And I will say North Star and peace to everyone. Heather, over to you, Arnie, to play us out. Oop. Can I line the camera up on you? Hang on. I should get the camera on you. Ah, yes, there we go. Oh, we got the hat out, the famous hat. There we are.
Nah, much better this time.
Much better this time. Well, I thought it was pretty good the first time. Right, thanks for everybody. North Star Pub. Oh, tell you what, whilst I've got the microphone on, I should, it's what I haven't done for ages, is put some of this while we go off and do our thing. Get ready for bed. See if anyone remembers. Oh, you spot the surprise now, aren't you? Spot the surprise. There are still copies of the album left. Please get your orders in. Baron be very grateful. I'd be very grateful, to be honest. I got loads of them. Can you hear that? Can you check your headphones, please, Arnie?
Yeah, I'm wearing them this fine. Wait, the music.
I haven't deafened everybody, have I? So you should be coming through the desktop speakers. I can hear Mummy whistling away to it. Yeah, it's on full. Should be alright. Is the volume okay? What's wrong?
Can't really hear anything.
Can't hear anything.
Yeah, turn it up.
Well, the things, it should be coming out right.
Maybe you have to turn up the music volume. Oh, I can hear. It's very quiet.
If it's very quiet, it's probably coming through the microphone, not coming through the computer then. Anyway, sorry everyone, around. Nothing me. Yeah. No Star all. Bye.
perfume is so fine, and you are always mine. Sly eyes, let me be with you. Sly eyes, come and see me too. There's a lot I'd like to tell you that you'll find interesting.
Paradise in the heart of man is better than something less. The first time we met, something strange inside happened. Nothing to equal the emptiness. Women, wine, whoa, give me some. The house shop shall truly get tired in due course. Another thing to say is my Jaguar still standing out in the rain on Water Street.